हेलो फ्रेंड्स, आज की इस वीडियो में हम बातचीत करने वाले हैं माई मदर एट 6 बाई कमला दास को 5 इंपॉर्टेंट फेजेज में। फ्रेंड्स, पहला फेज होगा ब्रीफ इंट्रोडक्शन ऑफ द पोएट। सेकेंड फेज में हम बात करेंगे थीम ऑफ द पोएम। थर्ड फेज में हम बात करेंगे एक ऐसे महत्वपूर्ण तथ्य को ध्यान देने की जरूरत है जिसे समझना जरूरी है इस पोएम में। फोर्थ इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट जो बात होगी हमारी वो होगी पोएटिक एक्सप्लेनेशन की, और फिफ्थ पोएटिक एप्रिसिएशन की। मैं हूं शिशिर और आप देख रहे हैं इंग्लिश पेज। दोस्तों, मेरी वीडियोस करती है आपके वोकैब को एनरिच, आपकी कम्युनिकेशन स्किल को इम्प्रूव और साथ ही साथ मदद करती है ताकि आप कर सके अपने एग्जाम्स में बेटर परफॉर्म। तो बिना किसी और डिले किए हुए चलिए दोस्तों करते हैं शुरुआत। Before starting to talk about a brief introduction of the poet, I would quote her most popular lines which are often quoted. I am sinner, I am saint, I am beloved, I am betrayed. Friends, let's talk about a brief introduction of the poet. Kamala Das was born on 31st March 1934 and she left the world on 31st May 2009. If I talk about her pen name was Madhvi Kuti. Pen name is the term used for the name a poet or a writer adopts for writing in the field of literature. It is not the actual name of the poet or the writer. For example, actual name of Munshi Premchand ji in Hindi literature was Dhanpat Rai, but Munshi Premchand had been his pen name. Similarly, Madhvi Kuti has been the pen name of Kamala Das in field of literature. If I talk about two of her most celebrated works, one is Descendants and another is My Story. My Story is an autobiography and it is so popular that it had been translated over 70 languages, friends. And till the date, when I am just recording this video, it has been one of the best selling autobiography written by any Indian woman. Friends, if we talk about the awards and accolades she had received, the list is very long. So I had chosen just a few of them to share with you. She had received Sahitya Academy Award, Asian Poetry Prize, Kerala State Film Awards for Poetry, and the most important fact about her is that she had been shortlisted for Nobel Award for Literature in 1984. Friends, let's move toward the next phase, which is theme of this poem. Friends, if you talk about the theme of this poem, first see the title of this poem, My Mother at 606. The very title of the poem reveals that this poem is subjective in its approach. It means it is a bit autobiographical in its approach and tone. Poet is talking about her mother when she was at 606. So first thing is that this poem is autobiographical in its theme. Second is she is talking her mother when she was of 66. Mother was aging. So aging is the second theme of this poem. If you just contemplate a bit, you will understand it very clearly that when our near and dear ones are in their 70s, in their 80s, what kind of psychology we involved in. There is an agony of separation. When you separate from your aging parents, you feel agony of separation. And fourth and the most important thing is the fear of loss, because your aging parents, even aging grandparents, give you a sense of fear. You get scared of. In this age, people start losing their health. So for the near and dear ones, there is always lying a fear, and that is the fear of loss. So these all are certain underlying theme of this poem. Friends, let's move to the next phase, which is must notice before going through explanation. I wish you all to see this lesson once and figure it out that how many sentences are there in this entire poem. If you don't have the book, I am just giving you the PDF file in the description box for the lesson. You can download the lesson from there and see it. Friends, one thing must be clear to you. There is only one sentence in this entire poem punctuated by several commas. So have you thought what is the reason behind it? Well, we'll talk about it in the end of the poem. So let's move toward the next phase, which is explanation of the poem. Friends, now let's go through the next phase, which is explanation. Here's the poem for us. Driving from my parents' home to Cochin last Friday morning, I saw my mother beside me. So the first three lines of this poem gives us clear-cut idea about certain facts. First thing, that the narrator, the poet, had been to her mother's home, to her parents' home a while back, and now she was going to Cochin. She was on a driving seat and her mother was just beside her. And this all had happened on a last Friday. It simply means that this poem has two elements. First, the element of autobiographical note. Driving from my parents' home, it simply means that poet is talking about herself, and his poet approach and tone is autobiographical. What makes this poetry subjective one, what in the very beginning I had shared with you. So, second element is the element of nostalgia. Nostalgia means remembering the old days, remembering the past. So you can see when the narrator writes here, when the poet writes here, she had been returning from her parents' home last Friday. It means that this thing had happened in past and now she is remembering the whole process. It seems that it's a nostalgic experience. So this element of nostalgia is there. Now let's move forward. What happened with the poet when she saw her mother beside her in this car, what she was driving? I saw my mother beside me, those open-mouthed, her face ashen like that of a corpse, and realized with pain. She saw her mother, who was sitting just beside the poet, and she found that her mother was dozing. Dozing stands for taking nap, taking a slight sleep for a very short time period. So actually she was taking nap open mouthed, and while she fell asleep, her mouth was open. And her face, the face of poet's mother, was ashen. Ashen is a verb made from the word ash. Okay, so if you have seen the ash, it is of a almost colorless or black colored, gray colored. So her face has turned black or gray actually. It simply means that she had started losing her health. Her face was just telling this fact. And her ashen color of her face is compared here. And what is it compared with? It is compared with a corpse. Corpse stands for a dead body. Dead human body is called corpse, and dead animal's body is called carcass. So her face color Her skin is as discolored as a corpse skin remains discolored. So this very comparison is simile figure of speech, and with this comparison poet give the readers clue that her mother is inching towards death, gradually progressing toward death. So this fact that her mother was gradually inching toward that, she realized it with pain. How can one feel? Definitely, when anyone feels like that, it is a sense of pain which haunts a person. I often say that in this world which is getting overpopulous, you can't find a person who can replace your mother. So this world may be overpopulous and getting populous every day, but you can't find your mother amidst the whole crowd. This is a fact. And this association every child has with her mother, even the poet had. And that's why when she realized that her mother's face had got discolored and was indicating towards her ill health, she realized it with a pain. And what else did she realize with the pain? She realized that she was as old as she looked. But soon put that thought away. She realized with the pain that her mother was getting old with the progression of every day, and thus inching toward her death every day. And this thought had filled her heart with the pain, with the agony, and for it, just for getting diverted these all thoughts away, just to drive away these all thoughts from her mind, soon put the thought away and looked out at young trees sprinting. While driving the car, her eyes fell upon her mother. She looked and realized that her mother was getting old and thus inching toward her death. And this aging, this realization that her mother was aging and inching toward death was so painful that she wanted to drive away the whole thought. She wanted to put away the whole thought. And that's why, what did she do? What option she had? She looked out of the car. And when she looked out of the car, what thing got spotted by her? What things had been seen by her? She saw young trees sprinting. There were many trees on the way which was running backward. The car was moving ahead and the trees were running behind, like that. Trees were moving backward. And these all were young trees, very fresh trees, and they were running, sprinting. So here actually, which figure of speech has been used? Trees are sprinting. Here you can say that personification figure of speech has been used. The merry children spilling out of their homes. What else had been spotted by the poet while looking outside? She saw trees sprinting. Second scene that she could spot was merry children. Merry stands for happy. You say Merry Christmas, happy. Merry children. Children were happy and spilling out of their home. Spill is a verb which is used to show the uncontrolled movement of liquid. For example, while rigging petrochemicals, oil from the sea, from the seashell, Sometimes oil spill occurs. Sometimes companies control it, and sometimes it becomes a miserable situation for the aquatic animals. Spilling, uncontrollable movement of liquid. So children were spilling around means it simply meant that children were coming out of their home and moving around everywhere. So just to keep this thought away from her mind that her mother was aging and gradually thus inching toward ill health and consequently toward death, the poet looked out of her car, looked out of the window of the car, and she spotted two things. One was sprinting trees, young sprinting trees, and another was children, merry children spilling out of their homes. And these two things are presenting great contrast of conditions. Inside the car there was a lady who was aging, who was inching toward her death. Outside the car the world was young and merry. But after the airport security check, standing a few yards away, I looked again at her. So throughout the journey she tried to keep her mind away from this thought. She didn't want to think of the whole mess. She realized, because this realization made her feel pained. So throughout the journey she had not thought again. However, when she reached to the airport, at security check, passengers can go from there ahead, their relatives can't. So at security check she looked back again, and what did she saw? What did she see? She saw wan pale face. I looked again at her, wan pale as a late winter's moon, and felt that old familiar ache, my childhood fear. When she looked again to see her mother, she realized again that her face was withered, pale, yellowish, as late winter moon. It loses its charm, its grace, its shine, its glow. Similarly, her mother in her 70s had lost the charm, the grace, the health, and it can be visible from her very face. And when she saw her mother again carefully, and when she realized the fact again, the old familiar ache, I felt that old familiar ache. Ache stands for pain. You say headache, headache, stomach ache, stomach when your belly is paining, when your stomach is paining. Okay, it's when you have colic pain, you say stomach ache is occurring with you. So she felt that old familiar ache. Once again she felt the same pain, what is very familiar one to her. My childhood's fear. The narrator had felt again the fear what she used to suffer from her childhood. And what is a childhood fear for a child? When you go to a fair, you must have gone to a fair in your childhood with your parents. What was the biggest fear you had? If you have read class 9, the story Mulk Rajanand had written, The Lost Child, what was the biggest fear of the child? What is the oldest fear we had? To lose our parents. This is the oldest fear I think a child may have, particularly with mothers, because we associate ourselves, anyone else, quite later, but we get connected with our mother even before our birth. Any relationship, however old it may be, it will be always lag 9 months back in comparison to the relationship that you enjoy with your mother. She knows you 9 months ahead. She knows you 9 months more than anyone could have known you. So that is the old familiar ache, that is the old familiar childhood fear started haunting the poet again. So what should she do? What do you think? When she started feeling like that, should she reveal it to her mother? What could you do? Could you reveal it? No, you can't. It's not possible. A person has to be die-hard, particularly when it comes to our near and dear ones. We can't be pessimistic despite seeing the truth. We have to do something what can make everything suitable, convenient, comfortable. So she too didn't reveal the fear she had in her heart. In place of that, what did she do? Let's find it out in the next few lines of the poem. But all I said was, "See you soon, Amma." All I did was smile and smile and smile. At the security check, mother had to stay back. The daughter had to go in. She looked back, saw the mother, realized again with a great pain, with a great suffering, that her mother was getting old, her mother was getting aged, her mother was inching toward death, her mother was gradually losing her health. And despite that, she said to her mother, "See you soon, Amma." All I did was smile and smile and smile. And she kept smiling, kept smiling, kept smiling, just to put up a brave face before her mother. So the last line, all I said, all I did was smile and smile and smile, was a constant effort to putting up a brave face when you have fear in your heart, but you can't look weak to others because they have the courage from you. वो आपने सुना होगा शेर, कैसे कहूँ थक गया हूँ मैं, कितनों का हौसला हूँ मैं. So the poet couldn't reveal the fear. So all she could do was a smile and to put up a brave face, and that's what she had done. And on this note, this poem comes to end. One or two more important things that is to be heeded here. First thing first is the use of ellipsis. Ellipsis means dot dot dot. In so many daily soap you see it is written continued and thereafter dot dot dot. This dot 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 is ellipsis. Ellipsis is a punctuation mark used for continuation of thought, continuation of something. So this entire poem has just one line. In the very beginning I told you that it must be noted down that this poem has been punctuated by several commas but has no full stop. Until the end it has only ellipsis, which is a continuation of thought. Why is it so? It is important to be noticed and discussed. Friends, see, ellipsis is the continuation of thought. It was not, full stop means a break of a thought, but it was not for a poet possible. It was not possible for the poet that she entered the aerodrome, she entered the airport, reached to her plane and forgot everything. This thought continued to her. In the very beginning I had a question for you and I told you to remember it, that why this entire poem is written in one line, why not several lines? Well, this is a poetic style to show the singularity of idea. When the poet is talking about her mother, she is single-mindedly focused only and only about her mother. Nothing else could replace her thought process her singularity of idea, singularity of opinion, singularity of intention, singularity of attention was her mother. And just to reveal that, the poet had used this technique where she had used one such big long statement and which ended with the ellipsis, that is the continuation of the thought process. So this is the explanation of the poem, friends. I hope you must have liked it. Now we are moving toward the next phase, that is the poetic appreciation. In poetic appreciation, we are going to revise certain figurative devices and these facts again. So let's see. First thing first, the use of certain figure of speeches, certain figures of speech which had been used in the entire poem. Her face ashen like that of a corpse has simile, because here comparison is made between two things. One is the face of her mother and another is corpse body color, skin color. The use of contrast, inside the car the mother was old, outside young trees sprinting, merry children spilling, so contrast is used here. Young trees sprinting, since trees are treated as a human being, because animals don't sprint, or even if it sprints, actually sprinting is running process for human beings, and trees are represented as sprinting, so trees have been personified. Here personification figure of speech been used. I looked again at her wan pale as a late winter's moon. Well, wan pale as a late winter's moon. Here comparison is made between her pale face and a late winter's moon, so simile figure of speech had been used. All I said was see you soon. As letter has been used, said, see soon. And this line, alliteration figure of speech has been used because as letter had been repeated. All I did was a smile and a smile and a smile. Here smile word has been repeatedly used, so repetition figure of speech had been used, and this poem ends with ellipsis. This thing must be taken care of. The entire poem has only one line which represents the singularity of thought and ideas the poet was going through. This thing must be kept in mind. That's all for this poem. Thanks a lot for watching. Take care and keep learning.